So set 4 came out on June 1st, and with that we of course got basically the next meta-dominating clans, which is Shadows, Royals, and Kagero. And so ever since that set released in Japanese, those clans have been part of the meta, part of the top tier for the last 3 months basically. And so with the new release though, a lot of people are asking, should I run like this many of this card, or like 4 of this card, 3 of this card, like how many, like which cards are important for each deck, which triggers are important, and all that stuff. And so because this set is so impactful, because the decks are so good, and you also need to know how to play them for them to be good, that's a very important part. Today what we're going to be doing is looking at all of the top deck lists of all the qualifying players of the Vanguard Zero Championship that took place in Japan. And so that took place from March, when set 4 released, all the way up to the middle of May. So it went from set 4, 5, and 6, but of course, as the set 4 decks have been relevant that entire time, those deck lists will still be mostly set 4 stuff. And so I want to show you guys what the top players of the game are actually playing, what they're actually using, and I think that'll be pretty good and a good educational experience. And then after that, maybe another day, I'm going to kind of talk about how to, counter and play around, build around some of those prominent decks. But before that, I wanted to show off something really cool I got today, which is the brand new Grand Blue Nightrose Zero Damage Gaming playmat. So I was very gracefully gifted this, and it's an amazing product. I honestly think this is like the best Zero Damage Gaming design that they've done in a long time. And so I am building Nightrose, and so I was really excited to get this. And I was about to buy it myself, but then got a quick little surprise gift. So it's really amazing. Super awesome. You can grab your own copy on zerodamagegaming.com. I'll leave a link in the description. So if you want some of that good Grand Blue Pirate goodness, you can pick up one of yours as well. But when we get back to TCG videos, in the very soon actually, because I finally finished my thesis, so I have time to make other things, you'll be seeing that playmat a fair bit. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get into the actual subject of the video. So now we're on the Zero Championship website, and so here we basically have all the online tournament winners deck lists. So this is the playoff tournament, the first qualifier, second, third, and fourth, and then here at the top we'll be able to look at the top 4 players, because this was in Conquest format where you bring 3 decks, so we're going to be able to look at the top 4 players that you saw in the live stream that we commentated with myself and Kai. You can rewatch that if you want to see some really top tier gameplay from these players, but I want to look through all the deck lists here real quick. Of course there'll be some similarities, but let's look at it regardless. So here is the playoff tournament. So as you can see, the end is very commonly running 9 draws. This was running only 2 Tejas, which we saw became a bit of a different change in the future. 4 strike-ins, because basically by going to strike-in and just passing against Majesty Lord Blaster, you don't give them the counterblast to use Wingle Brave, which is really important. And then basically you see like Overlords, the ends, and then the heal trigger is the 12k attacker. You either run that or the Dual Axe to have like an additional attacking column that can get over stuff. Interesting, he also runs one of the Doombringer Griffin that can actually bring you the end, and so that's also pretty nice. And then 4 Gojos to filter through your deck and draw into your Perfect Guards, draw into your the ends, and things like that. And then the one of Blockade, of course, is also pretty nice, because that basically can give you an alternative win con. Then going forward, you have the second player. This is one, like, let's say you didn't get all your Ganslots kind of Majesty Lord Blaster build, so you run like a Alfred early. Also looks like he runs 2 Alfreds, which I think like 1 or 2 Alfreds is fine. Here, 4 of each Blaster Dark and Blade, very important. 2 Star Calls is also, like, this list actually, I basically agree with everything, except for, I think Ganslot should be at 4, Palamedes at 4, Alfred at 1. Apart from that, I think this is the perfect list, and 9 draws is very typical for Majesty Lord Blaster as well. Looking at some more, we're probably going to be seeing a lot of similar stuff. So here's another, this is kind of like a good stuff Kagero, so if you didn't manage to get the ends and you want to still climb, good stuff Kagero is still doing some stuff. So basically running Overlords, running Blockades, Waterfalls, and Dual Axes, so that's kind of like a additional option. And then here's a D block, once again another The End. This time running no Gojos, I think, no, not Gojos, Tejases. Tejas became a trend, I think, the next month after this. At first, people were kind of sleeping on Tejas, which is why you shouldn't sleep on him now. He is restricted now in the Japanese format, however, so that's an important thing to note. So here we have Chahan, who also runs a Majesty Lord Blaster list. So here we see again that 1 Alfred early you know, 4 of each blaster. Here we see 4 Bedivirs and 1 Starcall. This was something that some people did run. I did this as well at the start when the set came out, and then I realized that I need the second Starcall because a lot of decks will simply get rid of your Window Brave and then you can't actually consistently find your last blaster. So basically with that you're able to do that. Then looking at some more. Let's see what else we can find. Here we have Yuki's, this is his Tsukiyomi list, which is really interesting. So basically he runs the Gentle Gym as the heal trigger, and Gentle Gym's function in this deck is essentially that he lets your Tom hit against cross rides. And so because Tom with the 7k boost only 15, so by giving him another 3, he actually hits the cross ride numbers after they take a damage. And that way he can still win with the Tom. Apart from that, he runs a lot of the filtering, so 4 Blue Eyes, 4 of the Secretary Angels, and then 3 of the Grade 3 Secretary. And so, oh no, I think this is the Butler, and then this one the Secretary. But yeah, so basically a lot of, just a lot of good filtering and ability to reach your stack. Only 2 stands, but if you know where they are in your stack, then you can hit them pretty consistently. So this is kind of one of the example Tsukiyomi lists that will still be living on. Amane TCG is a Korean player who was running basically a Garmor MLB variant. This was also pretty popular because Garmor MLB is a worse version of regular MLB, but the only thing is that it has a better matchup against the Mirror Match and Kagero, which are the 2 like tricky matchups for the deck, because Majesty Lord Blaster can basically clap everything else, but it struggles against Kagero and it struggles against itself. So basically by running Garmor, you give yourself more intercepts and more ways to sustain yourself and survive throughout the game. So Amane ran with that. And then this is the last first qualifier winner. So this is the end list, which I quite liked. 2 Airmos in case you damage your first one, 3 Gojos, 2 Heat Nails, a lot of tools that help you filter, help you kind of field control, and just play a bit more like kind of hands-on, like controlling your opponent's field and making sure that they don't breathe too much. And 4 Berserks as well and 4 Bellicosities. As you can see, those are very important. Also, Burning Horns, you can see, are still being run back here, but they eventually kind of start to lose out as time goes on. Going to the second qualifier, so here we see once again Majesty Lord Blaster. We see like the 1 of Grade 3 being Alfred early instead of the regular Alfred. This is basically that you can just re-ride over for if you need like the Blaster Blades retire to actually win off of it. So that's kind of an option, and I do respect it. Apart from that, here we see another pattern, which is people running the Gallatin in their Grade 2 lineups instead of Starcall, basically giving you like just robbing your opponent of the ability to actually hit your Grade 2s unboosted, and so therefore they have to commit more cards, so it's kind of like an interesting play on that front. And also if your opponent, like sometimes if you just want to keep your 2 blasters in hand and ride another Grade 2, this is an excellent ride target because then you can just go for MLB and call down your Blaster Dark, Blaster Blade, and you're basically good to go. So yet again, another good MLB list. Then moving on, here we have the first Shadow Paladin list, and so this one looks pretty incomplete in my opinion. This was only running 2 PBOs, trying to use Dark Dictator as much as possible, but instead, you know, we saw 2 Nemains, 4 Curse Lancers, and a Maka, which I think is interesting, 4 Masquerades as well, and then of course 4 Javelin is very important for Charon to hit for good numbers, although I guess you're not actually going for the cross ride that much. So I feel like this was a bit of an incomplete Shadow deck, but we will have another Shadow list soon in these qualifiers. Here we have Horai. Horai was running a 1 of Soul Saver, so this is a very packed Grade 3 lineup. Looks like he was missing 1 Gancelot, so he was running 1 Alfred early. And then the 1 Soul Saver is pretty interesting. It does kind of enable you to go for an additional kind of different win con, but keep in mind that then you lose a 2k power from having Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark in Soul on the Majesty Lord Blaster. The Toy Poogle I also liked. That never really picked up too much. People didn't really start running it or anything too much, but Toy Poogle is interesting because it's 9k boost, and so basically with any, like, with MLB, it swings for 21, and so that's pretty valuable. Otherwise, with the Palamedes, it actually swings for 22, which is also a magic number against Majesty Lord Blaster, which is pretty good. And then the final one of the second qualifier, this one is a Shadow list, and you might notice that I actually like this list a lot. So basically, he runs 4 PBOs, 4 PBDs, which is, like, the Grade 3 lineup is super, super typical. Like, this is exactly what you expect from Phantom Blaster Overlord lineup. Grade 2 is also 4 Nemains, 4 Masquerades, 4 Curse Lancers, 1 Blaster Dark. Basically just, like, you will always search Blaster Dark if you can find the Blaster Javelin in your opening hand, and then if not, well then it doesn't really matter, you know, it's just a vanilla, so you don't really need the safety of running the second Blaster Dark, and so therefore you can just kind of commit to running Nemains and Masquerades and Curse Lancers to refund a bunch of your counterblast as well, on top of, you know, being able to draw through your deck with Nemain, which is also very, very important. The one Arian Rod is also good because she lets you filter into any particular pieces you might need, whether it's another Nemain or a Persona Blast for PBO, or if it's like, I don't know, like just a lot of things, any random pieces, PGs, you know, as well. So definitely helps a lot, and of course 9 draw is very, very important for this deck. That goes without saying. Looking to the third qualifier, we have another Shadow Paladin list, almost the exact same, but this is kind of the, like, a bit more, like, careful list, let's say. Like, they're risking, they really want to search the Blaster Dark from the Javelin, so they run 2 of these Blaster Darks, and then they run 2 Arian Rods for external, like, not external, for extra filtering, but of course this comes at the cost of 1 Karen and 1 Curse Lancer, which is, you know, something to consider. Then moving on, here we have Parfan. So Parfan was running a... Oh, this is almost the same as my list for MLB, but no, actually this is quite different. So he runs 4 Lians to have maximum filtering. And this is interesting because what I felt when playing in these qualifiers myself is that MLB does lose out if your opponent like snipes your Wingo Brave and you don't draw into your blasters. And the best way to draw into your blasters is, of course, to actually just draw more. And so that's what Lian actually does. So the list does actually look quite good. Here we have Yuji, who ran a the End list with 1 blockade and 4 waterfalls. So you see a lot of these people using waterfalls instead of like 13 or 12k attackers, because waterfall with a bar is a 22k column. So even if you do right into it sometimes, and you're playing against MLB, you actually have a nice number to try and beat them with. So that's actually also pretty good. And here we see the trend of 4 Tejas. So this to me is like what the trend of grade 2s was starting to become. We had 4 Berserks and 4 Bellicosities, you know, they kind of balance each other out. 4 Tejas just to snipe those Wingo Braves, and then like 1 Striken to finish it off. You know, sometimes they would do like maybe cut down one of these to put another Striken in or something like that. We see the new Airmo being played a lot more here as well, because you can make 21k columns on Rearguard Circle with this Airmo, and therefore you can hit for magic numbers as well, which is super important. And then here we see a similar build. This one is again running 4 Tejas, only 2 Berserks, so it's like sacrificing some Berserks for like Nahalims and Burning Horns. But then this also runs Gojo, which is, Goku rather. So it's pretty interesting. I personally think that it's better to dedicate to like the 12k attackers and go for a Goku. Goku doesn't really do much for you instead. It doesn't really do much for you in general, I think. So I don't know. I don't personally agree with that list too much, but you know, he did top with it, so of course, gotta give props where props is due. Here we see another one of those heavy filtering lists with the 4 grade 1 Lians trying to draw into your extra blasters. Then we have Hafuman. So this Hafuman is also, he's running a more standard list, so this is 4 blasters, 4 of each blaster basically, and then 3 Bedivirs, 1 Starkle, which I think is a bit tricky, and then 1 Gallatin if you ever need to go into it, and the 1 Alfred Early. Looks like a list that we've seen already. Then we have Encho. Encho was running a interesting The End list with 2 blockades, 2 of the 12k attacker, and 1 waterfall, but look at that 4 strike and to just pass on turn 2. And then the nice thing is with striking is that you can pass on turn 2 and then you just ride the End and hit them for like 4 damage in 1 turn, and that's really, really strong. So striking is definitely an important card in that matchup for sure. And they also run the 1 Airmo that you can sometimes search with the Conro to keep up your filtering, which is very nice. And then finally we have Dike. Dike here is also running an MLB list with that Toy Pugel that we've seen. So those are the qualifying top lists, so you can kind of pause and look back at which one you like the most. I kind of try to comment on which ones are most complete, but you can kind of see by like the count of MLBs, count of Gansalots and things like that. But MLB is definitely, as you saw from these results, MLB is a deck that can run an incomplete deck and still really perform well, especially against opponents that don't really know what they're doing. Then I wanted to take a look at the top 4 of the Vanguard Zero Championship Finals. So basically this is Shinmai, Muto, Dotto, and Aren. And so they got a lot of hype from the Vanguard Zero Championship Finals. You should really watch that. It's at least the final games. Those were super hype. You know, follow these people on Twitter as well. They're really great people. And so we can take a look at their 3-deck lineup. One thing that's important to note for Aren's deck list lineup is that his MLB was actually complete because he's a free-to-play player. So the champion, the best player of Zero in Japan, is a free-to-play player that took 2 complete decks and 1 kind of incomplete deck just to kind of scare people away. and he won the entire thing. So that's amazing. So looking at this here, we see Tsukuyomi was a pretty popular pick here. So a lot of people running like several stand Tsukuyomi with like a lot of the filtering, like 3 toms. Dark Cats are a new change. I didn't really see Dark Cats being picked up too much, but Shinmai did start running it, and here we see the Amaterasu as well as like your backup ride, as well as sometimes you can Mega Blast, but usually don't. But here only one of the Gentle Gym. Then the Royal lineup is what you would expect. This is kind of like, I would say, this is, if you're especially insecure about not drawing into your blasters, you want to be running something like this. You can cut 1 or 2 Lians for 1 or 2 more Ks, basically. But apart from that, this list is basically perfect. It's really, really good. And then finally, Shinmai's Kagero list, also running like 4 Strike and 4 Tejas. This is the level that people hated playing as MLB, and they just wanted it gone. So they just ran all the counters to it. And then also the 4 blockades, which can also really catch opponents off guard. So I definitely agree with that as well. Then looking at Muto, he was running, of course, Royals as well. Once again, we see heavy filtering with the Lians. You know, it's like really heavy filtering, and then 2 Star Calls. And basically, this is, I would say again, a perfect list. Just a perfect MLB list. This is what you should be aiming for, in my opinion. And then we're going to take a look at his Oracle Think Tank list. So this time it's running less stands, but more gyms. And then basically just a very similar list other than that. 2 Geminis to make sure to hit 16k with the Tom, which is also pretty nice. So 2 stands in total. Now we didn't look at his Kagero list yet. So this one is once again this like the end list with a hybrid of waterfalls and blockades to help you seal the deal. Running that 1 air mode to make 21k columns, as well as the 4 Tejases to actually snipe the back row and get rid of the Wingle Brave. So then we have 2 shadow lists. We see a shadow list here, which is basically the same as what we looked at before with the 2 Iron Rods as well as 2 Blaster Darks. So Dotto basically ran that really well. Kagero list here as well, running that 1 air mode for the filter, the 4 Gojos for the filter, 4 Strike and 2 Tejas as well, and then of course some copies. This is what we saw before, I think. 2 12Ks, 2 blockades, 1 waterfall. It's pretty interesting and unique in its own right, but it is a very good list. And then this is his Royal Paladin list. Of course, once again, filter heavy, this time running 3 Lians, but the filter is definitely very important. And finally, the Champion Aren. So this was his incomplete Royals list. It was a MLB Garmor that he ran with, and basically never really played it because in Conquest you don't have to play one of your decks, you can just keep playing with 2, and so basically he didn't run into this deck much. He mostly piloted the Shadow Paladin list that we saw, which was also, this is a very typical list, you know. He runs that 1 Darkside Pegasus to actually make better columns, you know, to hit cross-ride numbers, to hit MLB numbers and things like that. So I do respect this as well. I want to test out with this in English myself. And then finally the list that he became super famous for, which isn't possible to, you can't play this in English until next month, but his Narukami list is very, very well known now. You know, he really stunned a lot of people with this list, and so it's a very good list. I've been playing this myself a lot in ranked the previous seasons, and I think it is actually really, really strong and super good for that reason. But yeah, so these are the Vanguard Zero Championship top winning lists. So I hope that by watching this you guys got a better impression of what kind of decks you should be building towards, you know, what are some of the best decks in the game, and also the message that, you know, there's a lot of different small bits and pieces you can experiment with, and MLB itself, as you can see, you don't really need to build it too completely to already be a big fear in a ranked ladder, so you can keep that in mind if you didn't pull everything or you only have like 2 MLBs or something, so that's something to keep in mind. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.